Gallagher Premiership Tonight. It comes to you from a sunny King's Home where we've just seen Gloucester beat London Irish to put themselves in a very, very good position for top 8 in Europe next season. So much to talk about. So much has happened. It's been a feisty all weekend. A few scraps out there, a few red cards. We'll be talking about those. Also, live from Paris, Simon Zebo will be joining us to talk about how the top 14 has been as they restarted their season, and also the new Champions Cup format. How do they feel about it? We're going to explain that to all of you, of course, at home with Ben and Austin, who are hugely excited about that. The trouble with the sun there, boys. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, over here. Over here.
No, it's fine now.
And we're kind of doing we're doing a Moneyball thing as well. We're talking about kind of data, and
data.
Genuinely.
You say data, I say data.
data, and how it affects how you make selections and all that kind of lark. So that's an interesting old chat too. But first of all, result of the weekend for you boys.
Can I pick two?
Yeah, of course you can.
Okay, can I go? Well, just a quick one for one reason. Harlequins, because we had crowds back, which is great to see. But I think the best performance has to go to Wasps, beating Sarries at virtually full strength. I know Saracens lost one player, and we'll talk about that and the ramifications of that. But Wasps look like the side in real form that could possibly take on Exeter.
Yeah, Benny.
I'll probably go Bath. I think the Bath Harlequins game.
I've already picked that one. You've got to pick another one.
You pick the crowd. I'm picking the teams.
Yeah,
I think it's a big win in the circumstances, particularly with the crowd coming back, and it's making it exciting. That last place in the top 4, isn't it?
Yeah. COVID nil, rugby 2,700. See what I did there?
I think you said 207,000 during the show.
Yeah, but I've been drinking.
Okay, excellent.
So that's why that happened. We have some tweets in. Please do get involved. #GP Tonight. We'd love to hear from you. This is from Joe Shuey. BT Sport could have used the social distancing rules to make all the presenters the same height by using perspective. Missed a trick there, he says. So basically, if one Benny's now, you go over there, Dougal. Is he small or very far? Keep going. No,
No, hold on, wait. Yeah, there. That's perfect. That's perfect, Ben. Stay there. No, stay there.
Well, there you go. Well done. That was a good one. Is he small or far away, Ted? There we go. Andrew Baldock. I hope this is another physical one.
Old Joe Shelley's had an interesting Saturday afternoon if he's come up with that, hasn't he?
Andrew Baldock, got a mate clued up in quantum physics, yeah? We'll email him tomorrow on the Champions Cup format. He thinks it's confusing. Actually, on first look, it is quite confusing. We are going to explain it all, okay? We're going to explain it all in a minute. Rob Golding, question. One of these two, Tuilagi and Van Rensburg, the sale partnership this weekend in the midfield, are running at you. What meal are you having in hospital that evening? I love that. Before we get into Europe, I want to talk about there was 2 red cards this weekend, but Owen Farrell was red carded in the Saracens game against Wasps today, and look, it was a no-brainer. It was a straight red card. It was a crazy looking tackle. If you haven't seen it, this is it. Benny, what did you make of this?
Well, he's just out of control, so he's going in to make a big hit and he's out of control, so that means it's serious, it's dangerous. He connects high, there's a slight knee bend, but there's no mitigation in that. So I think that's probably, he's going to be looking at that medium range, which is 12 weeks as a starting point, isn't it? Now, whether that comes down as a result of him pleading guilty early, as it sometimes does, but that's a mid-range for me. It looks more serious than that, but it is a mid-range in terms of there's no intent and to actually take someone's head off. So I think that's the end of his domestic season potentially,
and England's season.
Yeah, absolutely could be.
Yeah. Is there a difference between a high tackle and a dangerous tackle?
The only thing about the weeks thing is usually that's when you're playing every Saturday and your team only has games every Saturday. I don't know whether that'll come into the negotiations and say, well, actually we've got 2 games in a week next week, so do we take a week off for that? That'll be the only thing.
31st of October, England, Italy. I mean, that could be touch and go.
No chance.
No chance.
I don't think so. I think he'd be very lucky to escape with, as Ben said, much less than 12 weeks for that. It looks very, very bad.
Is there a difference between a high tackle and a dangerous tackle when it comes to kind of sanctions?
I don't think so, no.
No. So, and that is a dangerous look. What's interesting, a guy, I mean, he's a fabulous player and a player of that calibre, but, you know, in the past he's been prone to the high tackle and that swinging arm. Why has he not learned from it?
I think he feels that and for all people at home will say, oh, he does it all the time, he deliberately does it. I don't think he's just trying to hit people as hard as he can. But the way it's refereed now, the way we look at these incidents has changed forever because of our concern about concussions, and he obviously makes contact there, and it's very, very dangerous for the person on the receiving end of it. You now have to own that control, and if you can't make a hard tackle and have control, then you can't do it, and he doesn't seem to have learned that lesson.
He put his hands up straight away, in fairness to him. He knew straight away. Leinster might be watching that going, oh, hello. Quarter-final coming up in Dublin. No Owen Farrell.
Yeah, well, they picked pretty much a stronger side as they could today, one or two exceptions, but without Farrell they are a different team. Without Farrell and Itoje, very much so, and the Vunipola brothers, but it looks very, very bad to watch. One thing, there's mitigation and there's loss of control, and I think that's probably the only thing you can say in that instant. He's lost control of his body. Yeah,
it's interesting to see that tweet up there. People will debate it, but the potential outcome there is really bad. I mean, you could really hurt someone with a technique like that, couldn't you? Dangerous stuff. Let's talk about the Worcester-Bristol game, because we thought that was the kind of tasty handbags game of the weekend, but my word, Owen Farrell's tackle, I guess, is bigger than that, but still a red card in this one. Pretty feisty, wasn't it? Let's start with the Randrada moment first of all.
No, I don't think this is that bad. I've watched it quite a few times. This angle makes it look a lot worse than the other angle. It looks like there's a bit of a swing in there and he catches him on the chin, but no real damage done. This is the sort of biff we like to see on the rugby field. I think, I know you're not supposed to say that with kids watching, you don't want them to do that on the field on a Sunday morning, but you want to see a bit of feisty rugby, and we're starting to get to that stage. We saw a little bit on the field today. There's certainly some here, and this is old-fashioned handbags, really. Nothing much in it. A couple of really bad, terrible punches, I think.
But he did connect.
Kitchener's just gone, I'm going to get a red here anyway. I'm just going to keep throwing them. I'm going to make the most of it. If I'm going to be sent off, I'm going to make the most of it. But it's gone from the game, rightly so. I mean, we can laugh and joke about how great it was. The only thing that the self-policing thing did allow was stuff got sorted out a lot quicker. And what has crept into the game, because you're not allowed to do anything like this, is the little bits of people cheating and the referee not really doing anything about it. You could sort that out in the old days, but we can't go back to days of people just swinging at each other and
please.
Well, go on then.
Well, not the size of them as well. I mean, that's one thing I've really noticed with the crowds not here. We know how big they are, but the size of the impacts and the collisions, you don't want them punching each other as well, do you? Are you getting a different sense of the game without the crowds here, boys?
Yeah, definitely. And it takes a lot of I think a lot of the noise gets absorbed, doesn't it, by everything else that's going on, but it is pretty physical out there.
We're going to talk Europe next, because a lot of people do find it quite confusing. So any questions about Europe, #GP Tonight, we'll get to them. And also Simon Zebo will be joining us from Paris to talk through from a French perspective as well. So join us for the second half in just a few minutes. Welcome back to Gallagher Premiership Tonight as evening falls here in Kingsholm, and evening falls in round 18 of the Gallagher Premiership. Not too long before we're up and running again in round 19. Midweek games coming your way on BT Sport. We get going Tuesday 7:30 on BT Sport 1. Bristol against Northampton. Northampton kind of goose now when it comes to the playoffs. They want to secure top 8. Bristol aiming for that top 4 finish. Then we're at the Rica Wasps, flying form against Leicester Tigers. That is at 5:15 on BT Sport 1 and Ultimate. So if you're working from home, start a little earlier. You can catch 2 games, because at 7:30 we are at the Rec. It is Bath against Worcester. That also on BT Sport 1 and Ultimate, as we've midweek rugby. And we have European rugby coming your way very soon indeed. And then next year, well, it's all looking a little bit different. Due to COVID, they've had to change the structure of the competition for 1 year, maybe more if it works out. So this is how it all works. Very simple, really. It seems complicated, but we'll talk you through it step by step. Basically, the top 8 teams from the 3 different different leagues. The Gallagher Premiership, the top 14 and the Pro 14 will go through to the Heineken Champions Cup next season. So as it stands in the Prem, this is how it all looks. This is why today was so important between Quins and London Irish. The top 8 will go through to the Champions Cup next season as it stands. That could well change. Now, we know that in the Pro 14, they've all wrapped up. They're at their semi-final stage, so we know the teams that will make it through to Europe next season. It is basically the top 4 in the 2 conferences. But, and here's the twist, it can't be the Cheetahs, because the Cheetahs are a South African side, which means the Dragons jump up and will take their place in the Champions Cup next season. So you have Leinster, Ulster, Glasgow Dragons, Edinburgh, Munster Scarlets and Connacht. And in the top 14, they had to abandon their season because of COVID. This is how it all finished up. Now, currently, that's your top 8 there. And there's a little asterisk there beside Montpellier. Why? Because Castres are in the Challenge Cup final. If they win that, they will take that final Champions Cup place for next season, and Montpellier will be chucked out on their ear. So we said maybe what we'll do is we'll play with it a little bit so you can get a sense of what it looks like, okay? So this is a mock table. Do not screenshot this and go, hey, look how good Europe's going to be in 2021. It's not going to look like this. But as it stands, these are the current tiers. Tiers are basically the form they're in. So you got 3 tier 1 sides, 3 tier 2 sides, and so on and so on. Tier 1 will play tier 4, tier 2 will play tier 3. Confused? You with me? I'm sure you're with me. We'll show you another thing in a minute that makes it all the clearer, okay? So that's how it's all going to work. But, and this is where it gets confusing, you will not play a team from your own league, okay? So basically, if you look at the tier 1 teams there in Pool A, Bordeaux will play a tier 4 side, but they won't be able to play Toulouse because they play in the Pro 14, so they'll play Connacht home and away, Gloucester home and away, 4 games in the pool stage. You look at Toulon in Pool B. Well, Toulon, they'll play teams from Pool 3, Tier 3, but they won't play Clermont, so Toulon would end up playing Glasgow and Northampton home and away. This is just a mock-up, but that's how it all worked. Just 4 games played in the pool stages. Usually we have 6 games in the pool stages, and sometimes rounds 5 and 6 can have a few dead rubbers in there, and it can be a little bit awkward. I think it's kind of straightforward now. Do you think?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely crystal clear.
That's the second time you've explained it to me, and still nothing.
No, it is pretty
Let's
clear.
do the far and away thing.
It is pretty clear. The problems we're going to have with this format is we're going to have a lot of teams on the same number of points, both at the top and at the bottom. So it's going to come down. It could lead actually to very entertaining matches where instead of just getting a win and the 4 points, you go for more points difference. So you'll see sides really applying the pressure and going for the full 80 minutes. That's the only real difference I see in the quality of the matches.
The thing is, you don't actually need to know how it operates because it's still a draw, and it's like the previous seasons when we've had a draw. Why do you need to know how they've worked out? All they're trying to do is stop the teams from domestic competitions playing against each other in the European competition. I think that's brilliant. As a player, you hated going for a big weekend of European rugby and playing against Bath, who you'd played the week before.
Yeah.
So I think it's brilliant. One less game as well, which means we're less likely to get the dead rubbers, and then you get a home and away European quarter-final. So I think it will be really good. Don't worry too much about the draw.
Yeah, home and away quarterfinals is brilliant. Yeah. That's a really interesting part of it, because at that stage we kind of want the games to have real meaning, don't we?
Yeah, particularly if they're in Saint-Tropez or Toulon. Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm glad that they brought Miami into the mix as well. So I'm looking forward to those trips.
Is that just in your trouser shoe?
Just
combo?
these, yeah. I've gone for these today. Anything that were clean.
Good stuff. Rob Baxter was saying during the week that maybe the problem is with the way it's going to work now is that players will be just coming off international games, so they might be available for some of those pool matches, Ben.
Well, next season's going to be a bit strange anyway because of the international season starting straight after this season, and then us going straight into the next one. I think the England players are going to be away for a big chunk early on next season, and then coming straight back into Europe. How do the clubs see that? Do they go, well, actually, it's more important that we reintegrate these players for Premiership action, or do we really go hard at Europe? So I think Exeter might not go with, if they do well this year, they might go, well, actually, the Premiership's the bread and butter, let's concentrate on that.
I think what we're seeing there actually is the start of a European Super League potentially in years to come, and it'd be interesting to see how Gallagher, the Pro 14, the top 14 try and protect their own brands, because if they let that run away with them, then it could end up being an amazing product, and that's something that I'm sure the clubs will want to protect.
Will we get to work on it?
Hopefully, yes.
I think it's a great idea.
It is a great idea.
Really good. I tell you what is a great idea, that every 4 years when you get to the quarter-final stage. This is just a plan at the moment and needs to be kind of ratified. But the quarter-final stage will be against Southern Hemisphere opposition. So every 4 years we'll have a club crowned as world club champions. That's really exciting. Baby.
Yeah, it is very exciting. But again, although it seems a great idea on paper, let's just hope that the different compositions that all have their different priorities, the different international teams that all have, that can get together and make it happen.
Any downsides this format?
Just being able to travel maybe be the only downside, I think, at the minute. If we can get around the world and travel and go into Europe and no one has to do 2 weeks quarantine, then let's give it a whack and let's see what happens.
Of course, Europe is back properly. The competition we know. I can't believe that we're going to finish this up because there's still so many restrictions across Europe. So fair play to the EPCR if they get this all done and dusted. But yeah, Europe is back and it's coming your way.
Must be a try. Yes! It's there! Well done. What a monster!
Lloyd stretching and scoring. Oh, it's intercepted by O'Driscoll.
Magic from Murray. Pure magic! That was just a little bit special.
His hands. Oh, that is brilliant!
The top goal is good!
It's extraordinary. It's bonkers.
Steal!
They don't do the ordinary. They do not do the ordinary. There you go, coming your way. Currently, I can't even bring my kids out for a pizza when I go back home to Ireland because I have to restrict my movements. How they're going to play European rugby, I'm not quite sure, but they do have a plan to do that. Saracens have to travel there, of course, but it all gets going with the Challenge Cup game. It's a big one down at Ashton Gate. Bristol against Dragons, Friday the 18th of September, 7 p.m. on BT Sport 2, and that gets us back on our European Odyssey again. Saturday, Bordeaux against Edinburgh, 12:15. Then a huge game coming from Dublin. Leinster against Saracens from 2:30 on BT Sport 3. Claremont against Racing 92, a massive game there. 5:15 also on BT Sport 3, and then Toulon against Scarlets in the Challenge Cup. So huge Saturday rugby. On Sunday, it's Toulouse against Ulster. That starts at midday on BT Sport 3. Leicester against Cass, and we finish up, which must be a daunting prospect for Northampton Saints after what happened yesterday at Franklin's Gardens. They travel down to Sandy Park and the seemingly unstoppable Exeter Chiefs, 5:15. So we've talked about the Gallagher Premiership and our take on it all. What is the French/Irish take on the new European competition and just how things have been in post-lockdown, post-COVID? I'm delighted to say we can go live to Paris and join Simon Zebo. Zeebs, how are you? How are you keeping?
Very good, thank you. How are you all doing?
We're grand. We're bathed in sunshine over here. It's very warm over in England. You don't really get good weather in France, but it's gorgeous over here at the moment. In general, how's life been, in terms of kind of post-lockdown life and COVID life at the moment in Paris?
Yeah, it's been a little bit strange, trying to readjust to being back inside with the group training in the facility, and everybody is just trying to get back to our way of life, I suppose, as quickly as possible. The season's kicked off with a bang, and we've got some big games up early doors. So yeah, it's been a strange one, but yeah, I think we've all adapted quite well.
I would imagine the EPCR, who organised the Champions Cup, got a little bit nervous when they saw that Stade had 25 positive cases, Toulouse 10 last week. I mean, how tight are they all? I mean, you can barely move around the grounds over here. We have little restricted zones we're allowed in. Everyone's been tested all the time. How are they working it in the top 14?
Yeah, it's very similar. Yeah, we have a test twice a week usually, and same kind of protocols around the training facilities and the arena. It's hand gel, masks everywhere. You're doing. Yeah, it's just we have to adapt, and it's been quite strange. But in fairness, we've been quite good. We're in a little bubble, I suppose, out in the 92 area of Paris, and we've been sticking to ourselves, obviously knowing that if somebody gets the virus, we put ourselves in jeopardy for the big games that are coming up. So we've all been rowing in behind it and trying to be as safe as possible, and attack the season.
Who was feeding Finn Russell during lockdown over there? Because I've been in his house, he never has any food in it. All he eats is baguettes. That's all. How's he coped?
He's managed quite well, I think. I think he still has the Uber Eats app on his phone, so that's getting him by. But he's in good form, so we'll leave him be.
Do you want a bit of good news?
Yes,
your team Racing have just beaten Lyon. Okay, narrowly beaten them, but they've beaten them, so that's a good start for you. Let's talk about the new format for next season. What do you think of it?
Yeah, it's a little bit strange. It'll probably take some getting used to. Traditionally the format of the Champions Cup, you've had the group stages and straight into knockout, but not being able to play teams from your own country is quite exciting. I think everybody here is looking forward to that part of it, and as you were saying, the home and away quarterfinals is hugely exciting. So you just have to, I think the EPCR have done a great job in finding solutions to continuing with last season's Champions Cup, and we'll see how it goes. But I think a lot of the players on our end are very, very excited.
Practicalities of finishing up this season. You've got Clermont in your quarter-final. Leinster have Saracens. Leinster beat Saracens. You beat Clermont. You have to travel over to Dublin to Leinster to play that semi-final. Now, at the moment in Ireland, if you come into Ireland from any other country outside of the Republic, bar Northern Ireland, you have to restrict your movement for 2 weeks. Bit of an issue at the moment for Saracens. They're trying to form a little ISO bubble for them. It's a problem for all of us. I know even popping home is quite tricky for me at the moment. I'm just wondering, what are you guys thinking about that? Have you thought about what might happen?
We actually haven't, to be honest. We've been just focusing on the first couple of games of the top 14, and the Clermont game for us is huge. It's all we've been thinking about. So getting through that hurdle will be the first step, which won't be any easy task. And after that, I suppose it depends on how results go, where we'll have to play. So potentially it could be, if Saracens win, fingers crossed, it could be in Paris, and if not, it could be Dublin. So we'll just have to see.
So you've been involved with some really big forwards over there. After lockdown, how big were they when they came back? Was there anyone who was just notable? There's one name that springs to mind, but I don't want to say it. I'm going to let you do it.
I won't say any names either. They're a lot bigger than me, some of the boys here, so I could be in for the hiding. So we were all quite good. There wasn't too many. There would be a few players on the team tipping 140 kilos, which is quite large. I think the general state and condition of a few boys has been quite good, and we've hit the ground running now. We started off with an excellent win away to Lyon, so hopefully the momentum continues.
Stop pretending you knew that before I told you. You only knew because I told you.
I know, I watched the first half.
Zeebs, in France, they don't traditionally have a very long pre-season, do they? You finish the league later than we do over here, and then tend to start really early as well. Have the guys used that to condition themselves differently to usual?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we usually, as you say, have a very short pre-season, but with COVID, we've been in for a couple of months now, and I think a big thing for us was trying to stay fresh, because we started out quite hard and getting boys back into shape and getting the meters and volume into the legs again, which people were strange to. So we've used it quite well. We've balanced it really well with conditioning and skills, and I think we'll be quite sharp to start the season, thankfully. Yeah.
So we return to our restart of the season here with so many new things to look at, and one of the main things was Black Lives Matter, and it's been dealt with so well by so many of the players here, of course, and a really important campaign against discrimination and racism. How's that been dealt with over in the top 14?
To be honest, I haven't heard too much, with regards to protests or what players are going to do on the pitch, etc. But you can get a sense that there's been a little bit of a shift with regards to, I suppose, even some small things like dressing room mentality. It's something that people have been very aware and are very conscious of, and hopefully we can see continued change with that subject. Yeah.
Have players been taking the knee, or have they been wearing t-shirts or anything like that happening?
Haven't seen. No, today was the first round, so I don't think so. I've seen a few players taking knees and things like that in the Premiership, which is great to see. It's all for the benefit of the protests and everything that it grows in behind. So I'll hopefully get out onto the pitch soon, and we'll see if I'll be able to take a knee, or if we'll have a minute before a game to express your views, etc. But as of yet, I haven't seen anything. So
We have a Munster man who works on the team here with us, and he's hiding away somewhere. He's probably spotted a chip truck or something like that. But he did say to me, if you got Zeebs on, can you make sure you can ask him, is he coming back to Munster, and will he play for Ireland again? So I'm doing that for him. A lot of people are asking the same question, Simon. Is that something you'd like to do in the future? Would you like to come back home?
I haven't thought about it too much, to be honest. I'm very, very happy in Paris. I love playing with Racing at 92. You know, we've got some great players who are playing at the top of their game, so it's a very exciting team to be a part of at the moment. And I'm just going to try and focus on getting healthy and getting back onto the pitch and let the rugby take care of itself for the first half of the season, and we'll see what happens then after that, as I'm up for contract this year, obviously. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but it's not just me and what I want to do. I have my family and other people to think about, so happiness first, and we'll see what happens then.
Happiness always first. When are you back fit, by the way? How's the injury?
Good, thank you. Yeah, I broke my foot about 6-7 weeks ago, so I think I'm close to making a return, so I could potentially get a few minutes next week, or see how we go, but I'm very close to playing, so it's good, thank you.
Nirvana Nevermind, your favourite Nirvana album, or the live sessions on MTV? Which one?
Live sessions on MTV. Always. For sure.
Always
has to be.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, well, I'll let you hey. Behind this geek, there's a cool guy living deeply. Look, Simon, thank you so really deeply. Get out of here. Really good talking to you, and good luck with the injury. Thanks for joining us today. Really, really appreciate it. Good stuff. After the break, we're going to go from Paris to discussing data back into geek territory, but there's a good reason for it. All the data they have available in rugby at the moment. How are they using it? How's Eddie Jones using it? How can we use it to improve the game? Well, the two lads are going to discuss all that after this short break. See you then. Welcome back to Gallagher Premiership. I was reading an article here. It's Austin Healy's clever use of match data could be the catalyst for creation in New England. Very, very interesting. It's very interesting. What's it about?
I'm surprised it's not rolled up in your bathroom like all the other articles I've done.
It is actually a very interesting area. There's so much data out there. Data or data?
There's definitely data.
So much data out there at the moment, and we're using it all the time for analysis. But you're just talking about how Eddie Jones and I guess all international coaches are using it, and how important it is, how it influences their decisions now.
Yeah, well, I think everyone has seen or read the book or watched the film, the Moneyball story involving baseball and how NFL use it and the American sports use it. And I think it's been more based around talent ID over there and maximising spend and getting the best return for your money. But it's a lot more difficult in rugby because the game's a lot more fluid, so it's more difficult to build up enough of a base of data to get a change in what you're doing. And for too long I've always thought that we've got lots and lots of data which tells us lots and lots of things that don't always make sense. So for a long time in the past few seasons, Saracens have won pretty much everything, but they've had the lowest time in possession, lowest time on the ball. You look at this season, Exeter are top of the tree, highest in possession, highest minutes on the ball, lowest number of kicks in the game. Conversely, most kicking side who normally do pretty well in the past are Leicester, who've kicked more than anyone else. So it doesn't always stack up, and I think a lot of the time sides use it to analyse the opposition and work out ways of stopping them rather than improving themselves a lot more. And I think there's an opportunity now, and Eddie's picked up on it. I spoke about Mako Vunipola carrying for 15 times in a game with an average carry of 3 seconds. So for the other 77 minutes, he's working off the ball or without the ball. How do they maximise his potential, his energy levels? And it just got me thinking back to a very old coach. I don't think he'll mind me saying that, Brian Ashton. He's a great guy, and but for years he was saying, why don't we play with 2 scrum halves or even 3 scrum halves? And we saw today with Phipps, incredible pace onto the ball for 25 minutes. Then his whole team died because his energy levels died for 5 minutes. He recouped and then they picked back up again. So how do you find a way, by using data to maximise the energy levels and the pace and the intensity of your team in attack? And it's as simple as that.
So we're talking about using it to make the game more interesting, Ben. It's not about overthinking the game.
I don't think that's what the coaches are doing. They're doing it solely to win, because that's whether they get employed. I mean, there might be some clubs that entertainment's part of it, but I think Eddie Jones has brought people in to look at the data, and not only look at the data and the correlation between what are the things that matter most to winning rugby and going through all the historical data, but also using algorithms to plot that over and over again and test it. So computers that will say, well, if this team played each other 1,000 times, what would be the key indicators, and then picking players that fit into that. Not only picking players, but also tasking the S&C, the strength and conditioning coaches, to say that's the sort of game we need to be playing to win it. So that's what we need you to go away and produce or make our players into people that are good in those areas. Going to the skills coaches and making sure that's done. And I think, from a club perspective, if they start using it, it's different for Eddie. He can pick anyone that's English qualified. For them, they'll be using it for their recruitment, and they'll be saying, look, this is what we've identified is how we're going to play, the brand of rugby we're going to play. So rather than just going out and getting the latest big name, we'll go and find someone that ticks the boxes for how we want to play. And actually, from a financial perspective, that really helps, because he might be a lot cheaper than the guy that's actually making, which is the whole theory behind Moneyball. He would be cheaper than the guy that's making the big waves, but actually having 3 big impacts in a game, but not doing much else. So there's the interest really for the club.
I think the problem with that is you end up being cyclical. You're good for maybe 2 or 3 years. The real ability in understanding the data has been able to be, efficient and malleable and change the team as you go. So you can change the style of play depending on how you want to play in the next phase of games, and that might be based on energy levels, like you said. We had guys that came into BT a few years ago and told us that they could do this 0-1 modelling on how they could tell us exactly what the result would be pretty much after 2 minutes of a kickoff. Who would win a ruck, who would get a point, who would score a try, because they had enough of a sample size. So it's one thing having the data, but it's another thing being able to use it as a coach and use it not only to identify who to spend your money on, but how to get the best out of them and to improve them as well. Constantly improve them week by week.
Does it explain maybe some of Eddie Jones's decisions that have us scratching our heads initially? I guess Tom Curry at 8. Benny, is that maybe he's seen something there using the data that kind of suggests maybe that's the right move for him, but it's not an obvious one to everyone?
I mean, the difference here is we're not talking about robots that will go out onto the pitch and do what you're expecting them to do, and psychology plays a part in it as well. So, and being a good manager of a coach is important. You can have this great idea, but if you can't implement it, then that's part of it. So it's not, this isn't the only way coaches are going to do things in the future. There's still that traditional skill set. But I think Eddie Jones, he said originally, we haven't got this sort of player, so we're going to play this sort of number 8. If we haven't got this sort of 6, we'll play this sort of number 8, and we'll adapt our system. So I think that was part of it around Tom Curry, is that he wanted to play Underhill and Curry together, didn't necessarily have Billy Vunipola available, and didn't want to replace Billy Vunipola with a lesser version of Billy, so he changed the game plan as a result.
He's basically, rugby's always been about pigeonholing people into positions. Like, he's a great guy over the ball, he's a great carrier, he's a brilliant tackler. And I think what Eddie's done is he's basically got rid of that to a certain extent. Now the next stage, I think he's talking, if you read in between the lines, is how he creates new types of players, new styles of players. Do you stand Thockin Singer at 8? Do you stand him right at the base of the scrum? Do you remove the 15s out of your mind? You don't play outside the 15-metre challenge, you just play right down the middle of the pitch. Do you play with 2, 3 scrum halves? Do you play with 2 full-backs? Do you play with 6 wingers on the field? If you've got 6 Reece Zamits on the pitch, it's going to be very difficult for the opposition to stop them.
It's a really Australian way of thinking that, and a lot of the top Australian coaches have all come from Randwick Rugby Club, and Cyril Towers, who was the original sort of thinking man's coach, thought about the game slightly differently. And you look at Australia and look at how many test players have played in different positions, and it's completely different to anyone else, because they think that, well, actually it's everyone having the same skill and being able to slot into those. So like Austin was talking about, playing with 2 9s on the field. Gitto played 9 for Australia in games. Just that ability to swap and play in different positions means you can be much more adaptable.
Mirko Bergamasco. Bad example. How would you feel as a player, actually, knowing you're being kind of data analysed constantly and seeing how you fit into a team on the basis of that?
Probably going to work a bit harder, aren't you? Because you want to keep getting picked. I remember remember when, was it called Prozone that came out, the original cameras at Twickenham? This is a long time ago, before you were born. But it used to analyse your face and see how many metres you'd run on the field.
Had real problems with Austin.
But Will Greenwood had worked out that if he kept moving when the ball was dead, his numbers would be really high. So one game, I think he ran 10k, but it was only at about 5 miles an hour. And when there was a stoppage, he just kept running forwards and backwards, and his numbers went through the roof. So you know you're constantly watched anyway as a player, and it should bring the best out of you. But what I'd hope it would bring is a flexibility. And you know, if someone comes up to Ben and says, "We want you to play in the centre this week," you know, I'd be quite excited by that as a player. It'd be a great challenge and something new.
I'm looking for a tweet here.
Rubbish, by the way.
No,
but
I've done something to this machine, and I can't find the tweet on it. But someone called Shaky Jake has sent in a tweet, and there it is. There, GP tonight. Downside of a European league: the French salary cap is much higher than the English. How is it going to be competitive, gentlemen?
That is a problem, and it's more. I don't think it's necessarily about the starting teams, but it's the strength of depth that a lot of the French teams have that is a problem. So they can compete in their league, and compete on two fronts, whereas some of the English clubs might find that a little bit more difficult. Having said that, you know, the French do at the moment put a bit more stead in the top 14, I think, than they do in Europe. Whereas I think there's a lot of clubs here that would dearly love to win Europe and will go full bore in the European competition.
Just some other news that bits and bobs have come in, tweets I can read. I love the new interpretation of the breakdown. It has spread up the ruck and the game flow is better. The referees seem to be fairly consistent with their calls as well. This weekend definitely saw that.
Yeah, I think the pace. I think we are in a bit of a transition now into the speed of the game. If they can speed up the speed of the scrums and people standing there and saying let's go, and then not actually going, then I think we could really up the pace of the game. And if we do that, we'll see the weight of the players drop down. It will have to drop down because they won't be this big and able to have the aerobic capacity to run for that long.
So I think that's a bit of a misguided thought, because you know, Maro Itoje can run around for the same amount of time. I don't think the size will necessarily come down. I agree about the breakdown, and it is a lot better. The one area where it's a bit of a problem is the player getting caught making that negative tackle, falling over on the wrong side and getting trapped in by the support players and then giving away a penalty. There's nothing you can do to get yourself out if you're going to make that tackle. We need to sort that one out.
Good stuff, boys. Is that the end of the show, or do we do more after? This is the end of the show. Okay, good.